Hey, welcome back to episode 2 of Tyler at Home. Not sure how much I like that name, but we'll stick with it for now. If you watched the first video, thanks. Hopefully you found that interesting. If you have not watched that, this video might still make sense, but it kind of builds on episode 1. Today we're going to be talking about Surface Enterprise Management Mode for Dock. That is SEMM for Dock. Recently, Microsoft released the Surface Dock 2. It's a dock you put on your desk that allows you to transform your Surface device into a full-blown desktop. You may be familiar with other docking stations. Typically, you think of a dock as something you set a device into and kind of clamp it into. This is a little bit different. It's more or less a brick that sits on your desk with a long tail coming off of it that gives you the flexibility to position your device where you want it to be. So that if I want it off to the side in a dual monitor setup, great, I can do that. If I want my Surface Book 3 to be my primary machine, but then I've got it connected kind of up to this system, which is what I'm doing today, great, I can do that too. I have the flexibility to move the device around on my desk. Uh, Hopefully, I think that makes sense. We all kind of tracking with what a dock is supposed to do. Great, I dock to my laptop, to my tablet, to my book, and I can do multiple monitors, peripherals, keyboard, mouse, cameras, things like that. Great, and of course, Surface Dock can do that. If we take a quick look, right? So these are the ports that are on Surface Dock 2. We don't need to do the full rundown here, but you'll notice there's a lot of USB-C ports. 2 on the front. Call out on those 2 is that those are 15-watt fast charging USB-C ports. So if you've got a phone or a tablet or anything else that can charge over USB-C and has the ability to do fast charging, and you've got the right cable and the right device, cool, you can get 15 watts of power out of this dock. So while I'm fully powering my Surface device, I can also charge up my phone or whatever device it is that maybe can take 15 watts of fast charge. On the back of the device, there's 2 USB-A, USB Gen 3.2, meaning they can do 10 gig a second. They each do 7.5 watts of power charging. So again, that's not minimal. That will charge a device, whether it's a peripheral or a camera, something like that, at a pretty good speed over USB. And it gives you the ability to still connect USB Type A accessories to Surface Dock. And then next to that, you'll see 2 video-capable USB-C ports. Each of those also can do 7.5 watts of charging. They're USB 3.2, 10 gig a second ports. But those 2 are specifically designed for video apps. They do DisplayPort alt mode. Those 2 ports give us a unique feature on Dock 2 versus Dock 1, and that Surface Dock 2 can support dual monitors at 4K resolution and 60 hertz. Now, there's some caveats to that. It's the right dock, it's the right monitors, it's the right cables. So just know that that is now a capability on the device from Surface devices themselves. If the device is compatible, if the chipset, the Intel chipset, the GPU in the device is capable of driving dual 4K 60, great. Surface Dock 2 connected to a Surface device can now drive dual 4K monitors at 60 hertz. And that's a big deal for those of you that do have 2 4K monitors. There's a pretty noticeable difference between a 30 hertz refresh rate and a 60 hertz refresh rate. So that's good news. So great, all that understanding, docking station, cool, get it. Yes, there's a gigabit Ethernet port on there. There's an audio jack. I think we're tracking with that. But today I want to focus specifically on a enterprise feature of this device, and that is Surface Enterprise Management Mode for dock. Some of you may be wondering, why do I need? What does that even mean? What does that actually do for me? What we've seen, and maybe what you've seen as well, is Surface devices are, if your organization has bought into them, you've got many of them, tens, hundreds, maybe thousands of Surface devices. And that Surface device that you purchase looks a lot like a Surface device that maybe I have at home, or maybe like a customer Surface device or a partner who's coming into your environment. And perhaps it's in a conference room where I want to be able to connect my device up to a projector or a screen or something else like that, or just a charge. Great, I can do that. Maybe you're in a hoteling situation where you've got Surface docks laid out and you have different people, different partners, contractors, vendors coming in using a Surface dock for a little bit, and it's excellent. They can get power, they can get peripherals and data and all that kind of fun thing. But what if there's a situation where I've got my corporate Ethernet plugged into the Surface dock? Okay, tracking, understood. And I have a vendor come in and wants to connect their Surface to that dock. Well, great. Now they're on my network. There's a number of ways to kind of go about stopping that. There's, historically we've done things like port filtering and MAC address filtering and things like that. Well, that's one way to do it. I would say that's probably a less flexible way to do it, and maybe something how we would have done it in the past. SEMM for Doc is really designed to give us the ability to, at an individual device layer and at an individual feature layer, can determine which devices have which access to which ports. Now, hopefully that makes some sense. But effectively, I can say that this device is a corporate device. We'll call that an authenticated device to use SEMM terminology. This is an authenticated device. I know it's a corporate device. It's allowed to use all available resources. So when I dock it, it gets USB data, it gets Ethernet, and I can use the audio jack or speakers or whatever else may be plugged into that. Awesome. If I have a device from home, maybe I bring my own Surface Pro 7 from home that I'm using for school or for personal needs. And on my lunch hour, my battery's dead. Let me just plug into my dock real quick. That would be an unauthenticated device. And now, policy-wise, you can determine what that actually means, whether that's allowed or not allowed. But great, I connect my unauthenticated device, and it's going to get a separate set of policies. That may mean, hey, you could still use the audio output, you can still use USB data, but you don't get access to the Ethernet jack, in which case the device is not going to have local Ethernet access. An important point to note as we kind of unravel this and why this actually matters is that if a device is enrolled in SEMM for Doc, when it's not connected, it is defaulted to an unauthenticated state, meaning when it's just sitting there, that Ethernet port is not active. When I connect a device to it, it's still not active. Until it does the handshake to determine whether this device is authenticated or authenticated, that Ethernet port is down. Once we say it's authenticated, great. Ethernet port's up, we've got data going, everyone's happy. And so you never have to worry about, okay, for a moment, for an instant, did that unauthenticated device connect into my environment? Is there any malware that could have gone from my device to my corporate network? Is there any data or any other kind of tooling that could have bridged that gap? And the answer is no. The device defaults to unauthenticated until we receive a successful authentication. As soon as I disconnect the dock, unplug the dock, we go back to unauthenticated. Plug it back in, we go through the handshake again, we figure it out. Okay, does this device meet the parameters? Is this an authenticated device? Yes, check, awesome. Let's fire up the Ethernet port. So that's just worth noting, is that this isn't just oh wait, I don't know this before, maybe I should turn off Ethernet. We're going to default to that unauthenticated state and make the device prove, hey, you are who you're supposed to be before we give access to those resources. I think that's kind of it from an overview standpoint. Let's dig into this now, and just like last time, my goal was going to be to walk you through enrolling a device in SEMM, kind of walking you through what that process looks like, and we'll come out the other side hopefully with you able to do this, or at least you having a firm understanding of how you would go about enrolling in SEMM. And with that, I'm going to switch this setup a little bit and get ready to show you how to do SEMM for Doc. All right, so I think I have this ready to go now. Again, it's the joys of recording this ahead of time, is if I mess it up, you'll never know. So here we go. You'll notice that I have downloaded the Microsoft Surface UV configurator. If you watched the previous video, you may have seen the version was 2.68 or 69. I'm not sure what the exact version number was, but we have since released a new version of the Surface UV configurator. And why that's important is that when I click Start now, I get a different screen. I now can go the route we went in the previous video, which is Surface devices, or I can choose to go the Surface Dock route. And so I'm going to go the Surface Dock route. And this brings us to the first major difference between what we talked about last time, SEMM for tablets and laptops and endpoints, and SEMM for Dock. And that is that the certificate structure is a little bit different, arguably a little more complex, but there's a reason behind that. And that's because I need a certificate that exists on the docks that is signing the policy for the Surface Dock, so it knows, here's what I'm supposed to do. I can see that this is signed. I need a separate certificate for my host devices that say this is an authenticated, trusted device. Here's the certificate proving that I'm a authenticated, trusted device. And great, so now those two, I've got a cert for my host and a cert for my dock. Now, how are those two going to talk to each other? Well, the way in which they do that is they both come from the same certificate authority. So they're both child certs from that root whether that's your root or an intermediate, however you structure it. Again, I'm not the PKI expert, and I don't claim to be. But hopefully that makes sense. Is I've got kind of a unifying authority, and then I've got two different certs that chain up to that, both one for my physical device and one for the doc itself. And so you'll notice that, first thing I do is going to go to my doc, the doc certificate, and already created these. There's going to be a guide published soon, which I'll link in the notes, that kind of walk through what the requirements are for each of these three certs. But here is my CA for the doc. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my host auth cert. This is the certificate that validates the host as an authenticated device. You can see there, I've got the host auth cert. I'm going to open that, and then there's a password which we're not going to share right now. And do the same thing for provisioning. Now, this is the actual cert that's used to sign policies, that creates the file that goes onto the doc that tells it what it can and can't do, and how to operate. And here I see my provisioning cert up here. And so we'll add that guy, get enter in our password, and we're good to go. 3 green check marks. Great. Be very clear, if you're testing this yourself, this is where you're going to spend the majority of your time. Again, the guide, the admin guide coming out soon. It might be out by the time this video comes. If so, I will link it below and try to put a little note in the video. It'll walk you through what those specific requirements are for those certificates. All right, the next step is I have to say which docs this is actually targeted at. I can't just blanket, hey, make this available for every single doc. That wouldn't be good. Those are docs that I don't own. I don't want to take ownership of docs that I don't own, and I don't want somebody else taking ownership of docs that I own. And so you'll see in this tool here, now the wording is a little bit unclear. Hopefully we get that cleaned up moving forward. But I have the ability to add a unique identifier for each doc. I'm going to show a picture right here for a second for what this looks like. But on the underside of Surface Doc 2, there is a serial number, which is tracking. It's great. It's how we track assets. And there's also a number labeled an RN number. And that's a random number generated when the device is originally made. It's stamped on the bottom of the device. That is the only place physically on the dock to get it. It's not on the box. You're not going to query from it via WMI. We want to make sure that prove that you have physical access to this device. Quick pause on that. You can also get this random number, this RN value, from the reseller. So in the same way you would ask a reseller for the serial numbers of the devices you're purchasing, the autopilot information of the devices that you're purchasing, you can also get the RN value of your Surface Dock from the reseller. So if you don't have that today, go ask for it. If you're planning on buying Surface Dock 2s in the future, make sure you include that in the request to your reseller. You can, of course, type this in manually. I've actually gone ahead and created it. I'll show you what that looks like. Here, I've got a CSV with my doc's random number. Quick call out. You'll notice that the header of this CSV is serial number. That's what the tool is looking for, but the actual value is not the serial number, it's the RN value. And again, we'll show a picture of what that looks like. But I'll just show you. I can copy this RN value, come over here, paste it, and click add, and there it shows up. And I'm going to remove that. I also can create a CSV. So maybe I'm doing 5 docs or 10 docs or 500 docs. I get that full list of all those RN values. I've got my CSV. You can see here that I've got one called doc targets. I'm going to click add. It goes through that CSV. It identifies the serial number header and then all of the other values that are comma separated below it, and it'll link them below. I'm just doing one doc, but that's in general how the CSV flow works. I click next. All right, here's our meat and potatoes. This is where we choose what a authenticated versus an unauthenticated device can do. And just for clear demonstrations, I'm going to turn everything off for unauthenticated and leave everything on for authenticated. Again, so if my device is corporate managed, if it's an authenticated device, I'll have full access. If it's non-authenticated device, I will not have full access. And you'll note, last thing before I move on, this is also the step where I could unenroll a device from Surface Enterprise Management Mode for Dock. I've had to do that a few times as I prepared for this video, but none of these settings matter. I click reset, and that will create a reset package that I can run on a host device connected to a dock, and that will unmanage the dock. It will go from a managed state to an unmanaged state. But I don't want to do that today. I want to actually enroll this Surface dock. I'm going to go ahead and click Build, and we're going to say off, on, off, just so we know and generally what's being done there. Great, I created a package. Now, before I apply that package, I want to show something else. I want to go ahead and open up the Surface app. If you've never opened the Surface app, now's a great time to do that. And there's a couple reasons why. We'll see the rest of them later, but the first thing I want to do is click on this Accessories tab. You'll notice here now that Surface Dock 2 actually shows up inside of the Surface app. Awesome, great. I can see my serial number, excellent. I'll also notice a firmware version. If you're taking a dock brand new out of the box today, you're probably not on 5.19.139. And if you're watching this in the future, you may even be in front of that. But if you want to do SEMM for dock, that firmware version is the floor. You must have at least 5.19.139. So great, let's get on that. How do we update it? Well, there's two ways. One way is you can actually go out to the download site and download the Surface Dock 2 firmware MSI. That will work on Surface Pro 5, Surface Pro 6, Surface Pro 7, Surface laptops 1 and 2, Book 2 and Book 3. And so you can use any of those devices to update Surface Dock. If I run the MSI while I'm connected, it will deliver the firmware to the dock. You'll see your screens go down for a second, they come back up, come back to the Surface app, and you'll see that the dock firmware is updated. Note, it can sometimes take a bit of time. So when I did it, it was near instantaneous. I saw my monitors go down, they came back up, firmware was updated, awesome, good to go. There have been some reports that it could take 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. If so, the goal is just leave the device connected and it will stage that update. There is nothing a user needs to click through. Admin can deliver this remotely. There's probably a whole guide coming on how to deliver dock firmware updates. It's a huge improvement of Dock 2 over Dock 1 and how that process actually works. But that will come later. Know that I can do it on purpose if I run the MSI from a Surface host device connected to a Dock 2. I listed a bunch of devices a second ago, and I want to pause real quick before I go any further. Sorry for kind of the choppiness of this, but in order to support SEMM for dock, or the peripherals of authenticated and unauthenticated, only devices that came out at the end of 2019 and later will support SEMM for dock. So that's Surface Pro 7, Surface Laptop 3, Surface Pro X, which there is maybe a caveat to that one currently, Surface Book and Surface Book 3. Surface Go 2 is coming. It'll be here soon. You should see some updates coming to Surface Go 2 that will allow it to support SEMM for dock. It's not live today, but that's definitely coming. Great. So those are host devices that can be authenticated. They can be treated as authenticated devices. Awesome. All right. With that tongue twister and probably talking over myself a few times, let's actually roll through this process. So I'm just going to come over here and double click off, on, off. Before I do that, sorry, I keep jumping around. I'm opening this for a reason. Notice here that I've got the accessories tab and then I have the pen tab. Awesome. After I go through this process, we're going to see a new tab in here. And so I just wanted to make sure you see that before I walk through it. Awesome. All right. So next, accept, install. I could, of course, have used MSI exec /A or MSI exec /I, whatever the flags are to get that MSI to install via command line or via another MSI delivery tool. It didn't. I'm going to go ahead and click finish. Now we might lose video here in a second as the dock firmware is installed, which we just did. Good. So you saw that happened near instantaneously. We're coming back on. Waiting. Oh, see a little text back there. Let's minimize that guy. And there we go. Okay. So this Surface Dock 2 has just seen the video drop out, come back on. That means that it should now be enrolled in SEMM for dock. Let's come back, go to the Surface app. And okay, great. I see the Surface Dock 2 is there, but notice we have a new tab, and that is Surface Dock. And it's specifically showing me which ports are on and which ports are available. I say that available. You see nothing banged out, no red dashes, and that's because this is an authenticated device. Everything should be open and available to me. You notice here that my Ethernet port is connected. Awesome. I have Ethernet access. I have video access. If I had speakers hooked up, they would be working, but nothing is aired out. I'm going to stop the recording for a second and go over to a Surface Laptop 3 that has not been enrolled and show it as an unauthenticated device. All right, so I've now gone from my Surface Book 3 to my Surface Laptop 3. And the Laptop 3 is not authenticated, just so we're all on the same page there. So as I connect this, I want you to watch a couple things. The biggest thing is watch the where Ethernet was switched. We'll go from Wi-Fi to Ethernet to see if we ever see the Ethernet track. Now, of course, there's other tools I can make sure that there's no connection, but that's just the easiest visual cue that I can do while on video. I'm connecting my Surface Laptop 3 now. I'm gonna wait for video to come up. All right, video's up. Notice that Wi-Fi never triggered. Hopefully you all trust me on that one. And I'm actually gonna go ahead and open the Surface app. Notice here that this device is unauthenticated. I can see the Surface Dock 2. I've got the serial number, and I come down to Surface Dock. Let's full screen this. And port functionality is turned off by your organization. In reality, it's turned off by the other organization because this is an unauthenticated device. But you'll see that USB data is disabled, Ethernet is disabled, audio in and out is disabled. Now, data through those video ports is disabled. Now, the display still works. Real quick, I cannot do data through those ports, but the DP alt mode function is still able to is still working. So I've got video going into this system right now, but the USB data portion of that is disabled, and then the USB A ports are disabled as well. So there we go. I've got an unauthenticated device that is now unable to use those tools. Let's see. While we're live, let's see what happens if I can just, gotta love ad hoc demos. I'm gonna make this device now an authenticated device. So I'm gonna grab that policy that I just created, copying it over on a flash drive, and it's copied over. Don't you love the live demo on a previously recorded YouTube video? But where's the excitement in doing it off camera? All right, so I'm now going to plug in our good friend flash drive. It's labeled boot me, don't judge me. I'm gonna copy that to my desktop, minimize this, and look, there it is. There's our policy right there, off, on, off, off. You can see it was created today at 10:46. That was 15 or so minutes ago. I'm gonna double click that, and while I do it, let's just see how real time this works. I don't know, so we'll do this together. I'm gonna click next, accept, install, yes. All right, so what's actually happening right now is I'm installing the exact same package I installed on the Book 3, and it's gonna try to enroll the device, the Surface Dock, in enterprise management mode. Now, interesting point there is the dock is already enrolled. So it's gonna say, hey, that policy, it's the exact same one I already have, same timestamp, same generation, no worries. But I now have just installed the host cert, the host authentication on this Surface Laptop 3. And so this device is now going to recognize the dock. They're not going to be recognized as an authenticated device. You see it's setting up these devices in the background. So it's kind of figuring out for the first time, hey, this is now an authenticated device. What happens if I close here and come back? There we go. USB-C to HDMI adapter ready to go. All these ports are all green. And now this is an authenticated device. So I've got full access to those ports that were previously grayed out. And so there, I think that's what I need to show you is I created the policy. I had an authenticated device. We showed off the unauthenticated device. And then I applied that MSI to the unauthenticated device. And this now is an authenticated device. It's a lot of words, but hopefully that makes sense, kind of the flow of what I just did. With that, I think I've covered kind of where we're at with SEMM for Dock today. Again, I'll link the technical documentation admin guide below. This one definitely is a little bit more of a thinker. There's some work that happens on the front end to get those certificates working properly. So please look at the guidance. We publish exactly what the EKU values should be. If you don't know, if you're unfamiliar with how to create those, find someone in your organization who knows how to do Active Directory certificate services, or your partner vendor ISV, Symantec, whoever it is that you buy certificates from today, and they should be able to help you out. With that, again, thanks for watching this video on SEMM for Doc. Hopefully, it was interesting to you. Again, this is episode 2, so I'm still figuring it out. Hopefully, this makes sense and connects, and I didn't leave anything too glaring out. If I did, let me know in comments. But with that, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next week.